Well, Sarah Houston and Tom Bauer are still with me, along with historian and author Sir Anthony Selden. Sir Anthony, a big shock tonight for the country, for the world, that King Charles III has been diagnosed with cancer. We don't know what the cancer is. We don't know how serious it is, but we do know he's cancelling all engagements where he would have to face the public for the foreseeable future. What do you read into this?
I don't know what to read in it, to Piers. I mean, it's so unexpected. We can read so many different things into it. It could be just precaution. He is 75. He's not a young man. It could be the doctors are just saying, let's take it very steadily and cautiously and carefully, but there's nothing very much to worry about that we can't deal with our modern treatments. At one end of the spectrum or the other, it could be a serious and advanced form of cancer. At the moment, I don't know. I don't know if anybody else does outside the royal circle.
Sir Anthony, what are the constitutional implications of this situation? If we assume for a moment, God forbid, that the king is very seriously ill with a serious cancer and that there is a possibility that he may not come through it, and that's the worst case scenario, obviously, and we don't know for a moment that that is the case. But what is the constitutional situation here?
So it does show that the monarchy really matters in modern Britain. I mean, why are we talking about it? Why is the world obsessed about this today when there are so many other pressing issues, wars, and in this country, the prospect of a general election and party politics? It's all been swept aside. And why? And in a way, it's very hard to say exactly what the monarchy does do, but we do know that it's important. Not important because many people, a majority of the country, like it and want it to continue, but because it's fulfilling part of our constitutional function. It does help hold the United Kingdom together, take away the monarchy, and there's not a great deal holding together the constituent nations of the United Kingdom. It does help provide a sense of continuity, meaning and purpose, and somebody has to do it. So what will happen has already been pointed out with Princess Catherine herself unwell, and we don't quite know what's going on with her. That's a lot falling back on William, but also on his two functioning siblings of Edward and Princess Anne. But they're not exactly frontier figures. So there will be cover. I mean, what's important, what we know, is that this monarchy fights. It hasn't survived for 950 years without fighting for its survival, and it will make do somehow, whatever absence or whatever problem this is.
But Mr. Anthony, on the Constitution, if the king is incapacitated, what happens then? If he's alive but incapacitated, if he can't perform the functions of state, if he can't see the Prime Minister and so on, what happens in that eventuality?
Well, eventually there could be a regency, as happened with George III, who was incapacitated through mental problems. He reigned for 60 years, but by the beginning of the 19th century, he clearly was incapable of providing that steadiness of purpose at a time that the monarchy was more central and important in the country than it is now. So there would be some form of regency, and I would imagine that William would step up and become the regent, and that he would be taking over the political functions of the monarchy, so that those essential functions for the continuity of the British state would be allowed seamlessly to continue.
Sir Anthony, thank you very much indeed. I'm joined now from the United States by Dr Mark Siegel. He's the Fox News contributor. Dr Mark, great to see you. Big bombshell news tonight. I know it's making big news across the pond in America. When you read the statement from the palace, and it says when he had the procedure for the benign prostate enlargement, a separate issue of concern was noted, which is another form of cancer has been identified. Just talk me through the process that could have led to that discovery.
Well, Piers, good to see you. And we actually talked together about this at the very beginning when he went in for the procedure. Now, I talked to our top urologist at NYU, New York University today about this issue with the prostate. And he said about 1 out of 100 times when you're there, when you're going in, you could see a bladder cancer, that it could look like enlarged prostate, or it could be there at the same time as enlarged prostate, or it could come out on pathology. 1 out of 100 times or more that happens. I'll tell you, Piers, I'm suspicious that this is bladder cancer because he went home, because they're treating him as an outpatient. Because what you do with bladder cancer after you resect it, if you can resect it, you give BCG, which is a form of inactivated bacteria like tuberculosis. You infuse that into the bladder, and it cures it over 90% of the time. It's the 4th most common cancer in men. Number 1 is prostate cancer, which they say this is not. Lung cancer, colon cancer, those could have spread. But the King of England, I think, would be getting inpatient treatment for those. So I'm suspicious that this is bladder cancer, and that would be good news.
Well, that's encouraging if that's what it is. We've been asked not to speculate about what it is, but it's impossible, really, given that we know the King has cancer, not to at least theorise what the range of cancers it could be, given that it was discovered from this procedure for the benign prostate enlargement. I mean, so I heard a doctor this morning, this evening on the radio, talking about how when you have that benign prostate enlargement, if you are the King, they probably took some tissue from the prostate area as well, and that it may have taken some time for that to be properly tested and come back. Would that be consistent with a bladder cancer discovery? And could it also have unearthed something else completely different? In other words, like you say, could it have been a secondary site for a lung cancer or colon cancer or something of that nature?
Absolutely. All of those things are possible. I'm just considering the idea that he went home. And as you say, they ask us not to speculate, but if I'm right, this is very, very, very good news. This also happens pretty commonly. And also, they didn't talk about a CAT scan or other tests. You know, this is most likely something you would find while you're doing the other procedure.
So you would be quietly encouraged by the sequence of events?
Because he went home, because the King of England went home. And because if they found this, now another possibility might be lymphoma. Lymphoma is eminently treatable as well. But again, I would have expected the King to be treated in the hospital for that, at least initially.
So the fact that
I'm encouraged by the fact that he went home and that he's getting the treatment as an outpatient.
Right.
I find that very encouraging.
That seems to me to be a significant part of this. I mean, we know that was the case on Monday. What we don't know from that statement is whether he will remain an outpatient or whether he will actually have to go in as well. All we do know is that all public engagements involving FaceTime with the public have all been cancelled or postponed. That is very, very unusual, Dr. Mark, which suggests to me that whatever it is, they're very worried about it.
Well, or that he has a recovery time here, or that he had surgery done. You know, if it was bladder cancer, they would have tried to remove it at the time that they were doing the prostate. If it's metastatic cancer of another sort, it still can respond to chemotherapy or immunotherapy or radiation, but it would be more dire than if it were the bladder.
I mean, if it is the bladder cancer, and as you say, if he's had the procedure that you said he may have had for that, what's the recovery time period like?
Well, that would be a matter of weeks. Of course, he's 75 years old. That factors into it. He's in pretty fit, and as you know, Piers, he's the anti-smoking king. He's been asking for no smoking in all of the UK, so that's good because more likely these cancers are related to smoking. So he's a healthy king, and I think that bodes well for a faster recovery unless he has a more severe cancer.